Okay. There we go. All right. We are live. There we go. Whew. Hey, Abyss. How you doing? Sir, I don't think it's good for you to have that burning flame under the rain. I think it's going to go out. You might want to go get some maintenance. I'll say it's cool how even the torches use the mesmer flame, you know? Just kind of neat that way. I'll say the walls look so freakishly huge when you're just looking at this gate, right? Then you notice the mountain, you're like, oh, okay. It's a little more normal. Lol. Yeah. This is where the water would get dumped. There we go. All right, we go here. There you go. There we go. Boats. No, the tree. The poor ass tree. The tree did not deserve this. So it looks like it would have water normally, so. What's on the agenda for today? Well, Solomon, it's a bit late, so I thought I was thinking, you know, I don't want to do a trail stream this late. I'm not gonna be able to get many hours in. So I may as well just kind of run around in ER and chill with you guys. Hey, Nicolino. Mate, I really want to understand how you see the idea that Miquella might have wanted Godwyn's soul and failed because Ranni didn't kill Godwyn, but rather his soul. This really messes with my head. Are you trying to say that I'm assuming what you're saying, Abyss, is that you want my take on this idea. Because that's definitely not an idea I've ever espoused or subscribed to. Unless I somehow got drunk and I don't drink. So I have no idea where this entire... You know, these are probably really just roots of the shadow tree, really, rather than a proper tree. And it's like a minor shadow tree in itself, now that I look at this. Anyway, so my thought would be, I don't think so. Like, I'm not going to claim to be an expert on all things Miquella, but I think the fact that he was super really into having Radahn marry him when he was a kid before any of the shattering or Godwyn's assassination or any of that jazz was a thing, I think that would tell me that he's like doesn't really care about Godwyn that much. Like, I'll be honest, I've always understood that Miquella's obsession with Godwyn early on had nothing to do with really Godwyn itself, and more so being I guess not so much him being a good little fundamentalist. I like to call him that, but really he gave up fundamentalism early on in his life. But that he was like, you know, trying to find a way to kind of rectify the problems that Ranni caused with creating those who live in death. Got drunk on gotcha. Now that I can believe. I got a gamb. Don't worry, guys. This time I'll get it in the temple. You just need one 10 pull. I'll get an E6 Kafka right there. I already got her, what, E2? 4 more copies? Just need one 10 pull. No, but yeah, I am not of the opinion that Miquella really cared as much about Godwyn as I'm sure some people probably say he is. Like, I really think it was purely just a matter of trying to, what's the word, rectify the problem of creating those who live in death, since he has his own idea of order. And his idea was going to be, you know, trying to create this wonderful, peaceful, kumbaya place where everybody's living in harmony, and those who live in death is messing with that. Well, Miquella Charm is the only chance for Ranni to grab a fragment from the Rune of Death. So you're saying you think that Miquella was involved in the conspiracy in order to take it from Maliketh. Now here's the thing. We don't know how Maliketh's fragment got taken. For all we know, he was just kind of chatting and they just took it while he was not looking. They just swiped a piece. Maybe they were just fighting him off and overwhelmed him. Like, I am not, like, I don't find, like, you know, the fact that they took it that weird. Because we don't really know much about the circumstances he was in at the time. He could literally been anywhere doing anything. In fact, the fact they were able to, honestly, my biggest question is, like, did they have to swipe it the same night? Because then they have to swipe in the same night. Ranni has to infuse the rune into their weapons, and then they have to all go out and, like, kill everybody at a very specific, on a very specific timetable, may we recall, because they need to make sure that Godwyn's the one who dies first. So, like, there's quite a bit going into that. Yeah, I do think you could maybe make a case for Miquella being involved in the conspiracy and saying that the charm was there. It's just that I myself have not seen enough of it where I would say, okay, that's super firm, and I'd want to develop on that idea. I don't see enough problems with Maliketh getting robbed in itself to want to go like full throttle on that. I think the all right, so what I would say is that if we're going with the idea that Miquella is supporting Ranni, I still don't see how it would be supporting Ranni so he could get Godwyn's soul. I just don't see that. Because again, it's very clear that from the start, he always wanted Radahn. So I don't see what Godwyn's soul would be accomplishing. Like, he already had Radahn alive, body and soul. And he was really banking on Radahn fulfilling this promise. Now, you could say that maybe Miquella matured, understood Radahn wouldn't ever do it, but obviously Miquella took it seriously. He's like, you're going to fulfill that promise come hell or high water, right? So I would say in that area, I don't think it makes any sense either way. Like, okay, let's say that Miquella was part of the conspiracy, which again, I find it funny that more people were on Morgoth's alliance were part of the conspiracy than were not, right? Like, it's like, was anyone legitimately trying to become Elden Lord? Apparently not. It's just kind of funny if you think about that there was this whole giant thing. It's like, well, Malenia just was doing whatever Miquella wants. Well, Miquella's part of this conspiracy with Ranni. Well, Ranni's obviously the ringleader of this conspiracy. Then you got Rykard, who's also part of the conspiracy and has absolutely zero intention of becoming Elden Lord. It's like the only people that are actually in this game seem to be Radahn and Godric. Which I guess is funny because they're the ones who kick off the Shattering formally after God of War's absolute failure. Like, really, it was just Morgoth, Godric, and Radahn. Whereas everyone else was just kind of an imposter. It's just one really weird game of Among Us. Well, God was the strongest initially. I have no idea about that. Because we only have one, like, point of conflict, point of, like, you know, reference. And it's the Ancient Dragon War, where obviously, you know, Godwyn proved himself as a hero. But again, most of the other demigods wouldn't be able to prove their own worth or mettle until the Shattering. So was Godwyn that good that he was better than them? I don't know. And again, the problem is that Miquella was attracted to not just Radahn's strength, but also his kindness with his strength. Like, that was the thing that really got Miquella. Miquella is this weak person who at least thinks of himself as kind, but Radahn is this really strong person who is nonetheless kind. I assume the implication would be that Miquella appreciates Radahn's kindness more because he is strong, and therefore does not necessarily need that kindness because he could just use his strength to strong arm whatever he wants. But the fact that he is kind regardless hits a chord with Miquella. It makes it where he feels that, you know, Radahn would be his ideal partner as the god of a new order. Right. There's also questions about at what point does Miquella give up on the Halig tree stuff. I mean, if we take the idea that Charming Mohg was the case since the very beginning, and like Mohg's entire kidnapping plot was under the influence of Miquella, which would definitely explain the convenient timing of Malenia, you know, setting out to war and then Mohg showing up and stealing quote unquote Miquella away so easily. I definitely do think that you can make the case that that Miquella essentially had given up on the project definitely before the end of the Shattering. So maybe some point during the midst of the Shattering or even before the Shattering, potentially. This Radahn kindness is very strange to me. In what way would you say it's strange? I mean, we apparently have Miquella's perspective on the matter. So unless we're going to say that he's like loco, like to the balls to the wall, can't use his eyes proper, clearly something. Plus, generally, from what I've seen in my analysis, that yeah, Radahn is a rather amiable and charismatic person at least, so make of that what you will. I mean, obviously the thing with his love and horse is also gonna contribute. I mean, everybody loves an animal person. There you go. That's a lot of string. All right, moving on from here. I still can't believe I didn't get the moon reference here for the longest time. This one I feel very silly not noticing. It's like, oh, right, Alana. Oh, I never gone to the catacombs here. I guess that makes sense. I haven't opened them yet. Now, let's see. Yeah, we already looked over here thoroughly, so I think I got my idea of everything in there. Seen that. That's where the little monument is. There's another one over there. You know, now that I think about this, why does the road extend so far? All right. Because like it goes straight through the town. But the only thing it leads to, at least now, is a church. So unless it's somehow like, unless there's some sort of like lift, no, I don't think so. Unless there's some sort of lift system or something to help connect this to the mountain up here, which would be a little, I guess it kind of makes sense because it could theoretically create a route. I don't know. It seems a little weird to me. right? Like, I get the building the church at the end of the road, right? But either the idea is they replace something here. Maybe there was some sort of shrine deeply related to the water back here. You know, actually, now that I think about it, I guess you could say it's just because it's a source of water that could justify the road, right? Like, oh, look, the water. I guess the question would be, why the hell would you build a church here in the first place with the water flowing out like that? But I guess the idea is, you know, it's just a road so that way you have get a ready source of water. I guess that could justify it by itself. I feel like From Software keeps skirting around issues. I mean, I definitely don't think that they're trying to go in depth to explain mechanics or things. That's always been their MO. Like, they're always like, okay. Mostly because you only need to really figure out a general idea and you're like, okay, yeah, that basically makes sense, right? Like, at some point it's all magic in the end anyway, right? So as long as you understand like the broader principle, right? So they don't feel they need to go into any like nuanced detail. So I guess in that sense, yeah. From Software likes to explain something by repeating it cyclically. I don't know if I would say that. I'd say they mainly like to explain things by showing. Like the huge emphasis on that is trying to show something with a visual expression or representation, right? Rather than try to use an exposition dump, right? Though again, there's always been like, you know, your mileage may vary because like I think as the games have progressed, they've tried leaning a bit more on exposition and stuff. Like Elden Ring definitely suffers with that. I'm looking at you. What's your face? Freaking all-knowing man. Huh. Okay, so I was thinking maybe I was crazy, but no, they do use horns here. It's just inside Belorat they use the branches instead. Cool. There we go. Yeah. So just using regular horns, nothing crazy there. Yeah. Even the dogs at 2, Mesmer. Oh. Oh. Who could forget Sir Gideon off near the all-knowing? Listen, I have a lot of From Software names I gotta juggle in my brain. I'm only gonna remember my favorite ones. Yeah, nothing else special there. But yeah, so water alone could justify. Can we even get over here? I don't remember. Yeah, Gideon Ofnir, who his entire quest. It is always funny when you have characters and obviously their character arc is you like helping them, like, you know, with like whatever thing they're doing, but it's like, I'm Gideon Ofnir, the all-knowing. There's like, there's something even I don't know about it. You do that like 4 or 5 times. Yeah, that is always funny when it happens. You gotta love those little visual illusions they do. Maybe? I forget, is this gorge the way we get over there? I think it is, right? Maybe over here? I know there's at least one path that would take us through. I just don't remember which one it is. All right, more of you. I like the lighting they show here with all like, you know, the heavens clouds and all that stuff. Like that's kind of neat. This has to be before it's burned too, right? Because I think there's more pillars that are not, you know, collapsed or anything. Yeah, I'd want to compare this image to probably a shot I'd have from like a similar angle of the modern one. See what the differences would be. Suppressing pillar could be why they have the church down there. Yeah, maybe. I don't know what functional purpose the church would serve beyond being like obviously a house of worship, right? But again, if there was a shrine or something there by the water, it could be that they were just like replacing it there. Get just the icon of this painting doesn't show the full image that this portrait does. I'm sure somebody has ripped out the textures for the actual painting, so I'd rather just look at that. Mm-hmm. Good old farm colonists. Now this I will say I find kind of funny. There you go. Because correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they use these impaled, this impaled model in a lot of other places. Maybe I'm misremembering. There we go. There we go. Cool. All right. So got all that looked at. Just a bunch of finish sites. Yeah, just all my favorite guys all being murderized. Nothing to see here. Just another bit of history to be forgotten. Lost to time. It's fine. It's fine. I'm not bitter. Yeah, I do wonder if if there was like a migrate south for the winter being death, with Mother Deathbird between Gelmir and Jagged Peak back that when. This is all pretty samey. We've explored this place so thoroughly before. I am curious about the choice of these mausoleums. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think there's like a lot of graves or stuff related to it. Like they're just kind of isolated this way. So I do find it kind of interesting. Yeah, like as far as I could tell. Well, maybe it's just too low poly, but yeah, it looks like there's not supposed to be anything except just the mausoleum there on that island. Are there any burnt horn scent bodies that still have their horns? I don't know. I don't know if there are any burnt body models for the horn scent stuff. It's been a while since I think I've definitely looked closely at horn scent bodies, so. I'll say these guys look a lot less threatening out in the lighting here. They're a lot more intimidating when you're in a dark, dank catacomb. Horn boys doing their horn thing. Idea was never to have a mausoleum. Yeah, I can imagine. And I just still find it interesting how they chose to have a north, south, east, and west mausoleum placement around, you know? Yeah. They got that going. God, I love the sky, man. Just so beautiful. Like, man. Just that red. So much better than like the gray when you're looking this way, right? Like that red contrast with the blue. Like, man. So nice. I mean, we do see hornless slaves, so I'm not too surprised, but with how wrapped up some of them are, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't try to model horns for guys when they're covered in headwear. Like, there's a reason they have to make the slave models, like, you know, bald and capless. Yeah, I know you warm boys. Amygdala Troll Man. Yeah, there's nothing else really here. Yeah, so we were talking earlier about Night of the Black Knives, right? So, yeah, like I said, I find that to be the logistics of doing that all in a night is perhaps the biggest question mark for me, right? But at the same time, I would also say, like, if Malekith ended up getting his rune stolen on, like, a previous time, I would question how that doesn't, like, alert. Now, granted, you could always make the argument that it really doesn't matter because they didn't know what was going to be done with that shard of the rune, but you'd think Marika would be like, okay, this is like kind of emergency situation type stuff, you know? Find the person who stole that from you. So I didn't feel like it's an interesting, it has questions to answer in either scenario. Yeah, there's also the question, of course, of like, you know, stuff like Midra and stuff like that, and what was the exact relation? Like, is it an alliance? Is it kind of like a diplomat thing? Is it kind of like, oh, you're like a foreigner, but we'll bring you in and we'll, you know, take care of you because we really want your research, you know? It's like, hey, you know, we're developing a nuclear bomb. Could you help us, Mr. Foreign Man? Or is it like, you know, just you have these more respected hornless people in society? The thing is, you do see statues and stuff that are hornless there. And then you have some reliefs and statues that are clearly made horned. So it's an interesting question of where exactly Hornsend drew the line on the idea of having horns versus not. Considering they do put an emphasis on having more and bigger horns, right? What other nuances are there? Did Mesmer never receive a rune because he was behind the Shadow Realm, or because he was never Marika's son? I still believe it's because of the veil. I mean, yeah, Mesmer's in a separate dimension technically, right? Like, he's, you know, unless the idea would be that somehow a great rune would cross over via the Shadow Tree. Like, it should be, yeah, it should be as simple as Mesmer is just kind of not there. They get a sense of it because the Shadow Tree is like, you know, it's the shadow of the Erd Tree. So something happens to the Erd Tree, they at least get some impression, right? There was the the explosion turned into the fragments, you know, the whole wrath from afar incantation, all that jazz, right? So they definitely got a sense of stuff. But yeah, I don't think Mesmer would have received a great rune because, well, the Elden Ring wasn't there on his side of the veil, or whatever you call it. Sponsored research that was misspent on making Satan. Listen, man, you know, what if it was a Satan you could control and detonate and call it, I don't know, the Satan bomb? The Fat Satan. You know? I'm just saying. What do you think, you know, maybe this is a worthwhile investment? How do you know that, like, you know, the Satan radiation It's gonna like kill everybody because you had a Satan meltdown in your Satan research facility, you know? All right. Why is this storm so loud in that super localized spot? I have no idea what you were talking about. Uh-huh. Yeah, all this we've covered, yeah. There's nothing new to be gathered in this section of Limgrave and stuff. But yeah, think about the plot and stuff like that. So I've already stated before how, again, I say that all indications will point me to say that the assassins come from Celia. From this wonderful little Newman surface colony that the Academy was making dealings with and stuff. Dealings and breedings. Relations as they were. And then you got Ronnie getting in contact then, which makes sense, you know. If Liurnia and stuff are currently in contact, right? That's not really that weird. My question would be is like before, you know, anything else, why was Celia specifically becoming an assassin town? I do wonder if it has anything to do with the location. Like if maybe they were thinking of trying to get rid of Placidusax or something when Farum Azula was still there, right? Like if that was like the original intent behind Celia as they were building up kind of like, you know, their skills and stuff. But I don't think we see really any evidence of at least attempts being made in Farum Azula before then, so. Unless there's like a really subtle detail I'm not missing. I guess there could be. I think one thing that I think is interesting as a detail is, what are they called? Do we have any? I think we should have them. Yeah. Is these fan daggers, right? Because they're associated with raptor assassins. I don't know if I've ever found like a super huge pattern where I'm like, oh yeah, there was an assassin here because X or Y, right? I remember with the talisman, I'm like, okay, yeah, that would make sense. I can imagine people trying to assassinate Godric or something, right? But with the talons themselves, I'm not sure if there's really a like a deliberate, even in like a subtle, you know, like generic way, story being told with those. But maybe I have to look at all the locations again. Quiet you. Sounds like you have good hand placement. I don't even know what that means, Riddler. Don't they assassinate wizards? They do that too, yeah. At least the one we have, at least some of them have to. I imagine that would make sense too, because if you're going to be a town with a bunch of sorcerers and stuff, and you're studying and training in sorcery, some of your clients are going to be people who want other sorcerers dead, including their fellow sorcerers. So that just makes sense to me. But I'm trying to wonder if fundamentally, right, if there was like a bigger picture here. Granted, it could literally just be, oh, we're like, you know, night, shadow, our skills are really conducive to assassinating or whatever. You have all these people from the Academy coming over, making trade. It's far away from Liurnia, and it just became simpler to build a assassination economy, for lack of a better word, right? Like, have a bunch of people getting in the business of assassinating, because you can make, you know, covert deals while you're away from the motherland, and then the assassins will just, like, do the killing, and then they'll disappear back in Celia, where, you know, the Liurnians are not going to be able to really, you know, pressure anybody, right? At least up until the Carians, because then the Carians at least show some degree of influence, though again, it seems to be more so cooperation with the Nox or anything, so I would say that Celia still had some decent independence. Could Placky have recruited people from there? I don't know, because I don't think Celia is that old, and I actually say the same for the Academy. I don't think either institution is that old, because they seem to be post Ancient Civ and Dynasty, right? Post, you know, Fire Giant stuff. Post probably stuff with with Placky and their dragon conflict and all that. Like, I really do think that the Academy and like Celia might be probably maybe a little older than the Academy, but I think that both institutions are relatively recent creations in the larger history. Like, I think the migration of astrologers from the mountaintops down to these locations is not as, you know, it's not like this super ancient event, right? I think for the most part, I think for the longest time, it was the opposite. You would have astrologers coming up here, and they would just kind of be like existing, doing their thing as everything else was happening around them, because they're just like this isolated hermit village, right, on this little mountain top here. So then you have the Academy. You have Celia, right? Celia is kind of building out this network and stuff up to where Summon Water is, right? It's a little highway network going. And if, at some point you got these wandering sorcerers who end up going to the others, and they're coming back and they're mentioning it, and eventually you get more firmly established trade routes, right? Like, you also get stuff like the sorcerer town here. Now, granted, because Oridus's Rise, as I recall, has some of the witch statues, this might date to specifically post-Caria. I don't want to have a, you know, I don't want to make a firm date on that. Obviously, the tower itself is relatively recent with the meteor showers and stuff. Could be inheriting assassin culture from previous. The thing is, we don't really see much evidence of that, right? So I wouldn't be like, oh, well, maybe there's a previous assassin culture in Caelid, right? Like, I just don't see, you know, like it's presupposing to make this point about Placky than the recruitment, right? Which is just, again, I don't think it's a good basis to work from. Like, here's the thing. Placky can just get the Drake Warriors from locals in Far Missoula, especially if, again, as I've attested before, it looks like probably the first humans may have been born from Far Missoula, and then everyone migrated out from there. At which point, yeah, it wouldn't be weird to have a bunch of native humans, and then those people would come out to fight the battles alongside the Beastmen up here and spread over to the mountaintops with Soul and over here in the plateau. And then obviously we talked about moving all the way, trying to get a foothold in Liurnia, but then getting pushed back, them never really establishing a foothold in Caelid. And that's really the problem I have, is that it really does look like the southern, like Far Missoula's southern front, as it were, was kind of just stalled. Like, we have all these graves and death and stuff like that, and I don't think they really made it past far on these bridges. Like, I don't think they would have had the chance to even make contact with Celia if they wanted. Now, maybe, because we do have evidence of astrologers coming and potentially staying here, maybe you could say there's some talk there, and then they would establish, and then they would bring those guys back. That would be possible, but I think that would be after the conflict already would started, so... Drake Warrior said is found in Far Missoula. Yeah. Well, again, yeah, but you know, you could make the argument that the person who wears the Drake Warrior set could come from anywhere, Xavier, right? That just tells you that obviously, you know, that the people there are likely affiliated with Far Missoula. Doesn't really tell you much about, you know, where they originally came from. Was it from Far Missoula? Was it somewhere outside Far Missoula? Right? Yeah. Also, I saw a thumbnail or something. People were talking about windmills now. I remember there was a thing on the Discord about concept art with like windmill things they were doing. Is there something people were making a big deal about that's actually significant about this, or is it just more schizo posting? Because like, just looking at this, I'm like, okay, we have some of these pillars and stuff, right? I think there's a portion of this that is Erd Tree Highway, but I think it's earlier on, so... Yeah, because you have the one here. And the concept art seems to show that it wouldn't have just been here. It would also been in stuff like this, though I don't know if the sizes are the exact match, right? Yeah, I think they're a little smaller. But it looks like from the concept art they changed it out for this. And I can totally buy that these were all originally windmills, because it is a bit curious that they just have kind of these random towers for the torches up here, right? Obviously the outside of the gameplay purpose, right? So I could totally see it being something where it's like, oh yeah, this was a thing for windmills at one point, right? But I don't know what the significance would be. Like, what are these windmills serving? Are they like weather vanes or something? Are they meant to like help measure like wind speed or something for like their specific sorcery research? Like, the vertical windmill is the oldest kind of windmill. Oh, that's cool. That could be useful if you want to argue that Celia might be even older. Yeah, because I can't see what the purpose with the windmills serve normally. Like even this one here. You know, you got this building, you know, house, whatever, right? And then you got the windmill up top. Like what? Is it supposed to be like, I don't know, some sort of like power generator of some sort? Like, is it just supposed to show off the creativity of the sorcerers that they had this, they came up with like the first, I don't know, windmill generator or something? You could argue grinding crystals, I guess. Yeah, like I'm trying to think, like something, like it would have to serve some purpose, either for research purposes or for, you know, some sort of like material collection or something, right? Like grinding down crystals. I don't know, doing some like sort of alchemical, you know, something that would require the power of wind to help it. It would add convenience. Yeah, another reason I could definitely see these being added more recently is because, correct me if I'm wrong, all the barriers that appear here are they either have the Carian sigil or the Rhea Lucarian sigil, right? So it definitely tell you you'd have to be a post contact with Rhea Lucaria, right? I don't even remember all the items here, so yeah, I could definitely see the idea that they replaced them. What does Nardi say can be found here? I don't remember there being that much, but let's open it up. I should have the dock here. All right. No, that's not helpful. Converted fringe tower. Really? No Celia? Oh, this is Liurnia. That's why. Duh. Duh. All right. There we go. Celia Crystal Tunnel. All right, so let's see. Yeah, Nardi has not organized this that well. Let's see, some glass shards near the gateway. I think that's probably a reference to the demi-humans, because I think there's demi-humans around there. Maybe I'm... Yeah, isn't there like a tribe like somewhere up there, like by the bats or something? Sacramental buds and the chairs and stuff. Golden runes, the note, the needle, map fragments, poison mothflight dropped by the Knights Cavalry. What a shocker. All right, so rotten stray ashes again. What a shocker. Let's see, inside the actual town now. Poison grease again, not a shocker, because even if you take out the whole rot thing, the whole assassination thing, especially when we just got the poison moth thing earlier. Glintstone fireflies, harvestable golden seeds. Yeah, that makes sense because we have a bunch of crystals and stuff, right? So golden seed from the tree, toxic mushroom, the rot stuff, staff of loss. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Ash of War double slash. Isn't that the one that's connected to Redmane's? I can't remember now off the top of my head. More Toxic Mushroom, Cerulean Tear Scarab. Again, nothing too crazy there. The Redmane painting, obviously. Imbued Sword Key, right? That's the thing in one of the seals in the chests, if I recall. Miquella's Lily, Night Comet Sorcery. Yeah, one of the sealed alcoves. Spelldrake Talisman +1. Yeah, again, that would go back to some of the older stuff. Let's see. Celia Everjail, that's up there. The Crypt Chair, obviously Nox Flowing Sword from the boss, and then Lusat's Glintstone Staff underneath the chair. Yeah, nothing really. So the Smithing Stone from the Gnomes. You have some of the Sevens and things. Got Miquella's Lily here. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything too crazy, even in nearby dungeons and stuff. It's really generic stuff. Yeah, Redmanes use it? Okay, good. Because I'm like... I remember that from somewhere. Yeah, so they don't really give you too much to work with. And they're obviously reusing Academy enemies, but they're ghosts here, so... Woo! I don't remember if I mentioned the marionettes much in my Radon stuff. I think I might have to. At the very least, I should double check. Which would make sense as Redmanes did train with Radon. Why? Is there a double slash stuff that Radon does that's very similar? Woo! Like, do I have this? That's not Ash of War. There we go. See if I collected it. Oh, there we go. Yeah, because he uses a katana in the icon. Yeah, no colossal weapons though, but anything on souls and swords and polearms capable of slashing. Yeah, I understood it to be something that the Redmanes had likely picked up from like local Easterners showing up. Eastern Tarnished or whatever, you know. I don't know, as we know from Night Rain, a random Eastern samurai dude can just kind of just wash ashore and end up becoming part of Godfrey's court. It's that easy. Yeah, he definitely trains with knights like Olga. I'm not sure about the soldiers. Yeah, so the idea would be you'd have a bunch of Newman and human astrologers coming together, making contact down in Nokron, and they basically agree, okay, we'll establish this surface colony, right? Nokron is doing that. Now, granted, we shouldn't forget that Nokron is the ones who keep the Finger Slayer blade. So once again, if the assassin culture had some underlying impetus to it, if there was some like big picture scheme involved, I would not be surprised if it's somehow, if it didn't relate to Placky and Farum Azula specifically, right? Let's assume like I could see it as a way for them to try to prepare to get revenge on the Fingers and the Greater Will. Right? I could see this being that idea. And then Ronnie was that opportunity for some of them to deliver on this like generations long dream. I talked about Cathedral for the for later at Night Scout related to what we see in the Fringe Folk Rebellion. So I don't think that the cathedral goes back that far. It definitely seems like the cathedral and by extension the other church we see over in Limgrave are from a little bit later in the timeline. Could also deal with Moonvale. It's also buried with a ghost plant, so it was respected. You mean the Ash of War, right? No, if you're talking about was buried with a moon plant, no. That would be that would have to be the Finger Slayer blade, right? So I'm pretty sure that we find some of the ghost plants with that up there, right? Am I crazy? Yeah, so you got some astrologers coming down here, hanging around, making relations with the people in Nokron and stuff. Eventually, they agree to establish the surface colony. And the colony at the very least serve for the purposes of obviously sorcery and advancing their Night Lord ambition. Ash of War for Moonvale, Ghost Plant for Finger Slayer, yeah. Ooh. So, yeah, because you can make an argument that the Moonvale stuff ties into this whole idea of having a history of Easterners that goes back. That's very true. Actually, that would actually be really nice for me. If I could like take some of the stuff I talked about with like Eastern cultures and stuff outside the Lands Between and kind of move that to Long March. You know, out of Long March and put in astrologers. That's a future Loki probably. Anyway, so oh, there's the statue here, but Erdtree's also nice. Nope, don't need that. Oh, nope, don't need that. Oh my god, I literally took every path except the right one. So you have them all coming together, right? So you have all these Newmen, right? As I said before, I do not have any expectation of Marika being involved in this plot. I think people are too lost in the sauce. I think when it's saying that, you know, that these women are Newmen who have close ties to Marika, again, I prefer if the localization kept it a little closer and just said Newman close to Marika, right? The use of close doesn't need to say anything more than a, you know, psychological affinity, right? Doesn't necessarily mean she knew these people or she had some close relationship with them specifically, right? Just more so they are Newman. Marika is herself a Newman. There's the connection. There's why they are close. There's a closeness to them. Same or at least similar enough races. So I don't think that, you know, Marika's involved in this in any respect. It's just Ranni. And if Ranni is you know, as her princess, she has the ties to be able to not only know about the assassin culture in Sellia. Let's assume it's like an underworld type thing, right? Like, it's not like, you know, it's not like the thing that, you know, respectable people deal with, right? But, you know, it's something where if you're in the know, you know, right? Like, especially if you're a person of power and stuff like that. Like, that stuff's gonna likely trickle in there, especially if you're Ranni. So I think that, you know, it's not crazy. You know, she goes over, makes deals with them. They're all thinking it's good. It also explain why we don't see them return back here, because they don't want to potentially implicate the town by doing so. And then obviously after the rot thing, it becomes more difficult. So they kind of just wander around in, you know, God knows where. Basically, you know, abandoning where they come from. And from what I recall, we have a lot of them try to go after stuff like Deathroot. So we have like the one at the Death Touch Catacombs, who seems to cross paths with like Moog worshippers. You got the one obviously here at the in front of the Sainted Hero's grave, probably tired from some exploration. You got the one in the Black Knife Catacombs, duh. Are there any others? Obviously, we have a few that end up like joining up with Mikola basically at the Celia stuff with Ordina. Oh, sorry, Celius. That's or just just Ordina. Just because it looks similar, Loki. Not all Nox towns are the same. And then we have one mad lass, I should say, one mad lass who goes through all the trouble to try to reinfiltrate the city, just to try to assassinate Marika. Now, someone should have given her the memo. Yeah, honey. Honey, you succeeded more than you thought you did. Marika kind of self-destructed after that. Congrats. Man, you can just feel the... It's like, really? Like, you can just imagine all that exhaustion coming over her when she comes in here and she sees, oh. Oh. Man. I did all that for nothing. For nothing. Oh yeah, we also have the one in here. Though as I've said, I assume that this one isn't actually I guess it's possible that that the assassin could be working for, but I still think it's more likely that the assassin just kind of was, you know, moseyed on in and took over after Garrus had his own, you know, string of problems. Granted, maybe she... I was thinking maybe it could still be related to the death stuff, because especially if this was like, you know, Deathbird Mountain, maybe the assassin learned or figured out or knew that history and was like, oh, I guess I'll investigate, try to get stuff like the Raven Mount assassin gear that Garrus collects. Could be something like that, maybe. Yeah, because now that I think about it, yeah, we basically described that all of them are doing something related to collecting more power of death. The only exceptions would obviously be the ringleader. Seems like her thing was to track down Rodney and get revenge for her dead daughter because of how things went haywire after the assassination. And then obviously the Black Knives that we find in the wings that do the killing. I know some people have posited that Ronnie hired them. I'm liable to believe it could also just be that they were also organizing their own revenge attempt, and it just happened to work out that way because, you know, Ronnie's no longer protecting them. But I mean, it's always possible that like Ronnie was using their ringleader being captured as a bargaining chip to try to get them to finish off Blythe and EG at the end. Again, I just don't know. Like, you know, I don't know enough about like what Ronnie's motives and stuff at this point in the quest line is, so I don't know how, like, you know, rational that is. She's just sad because Morgott won't let her into the tree to kill Marika. Can you imagine can you imagine we follow that assassin? She moves on, she goes, meets Morgott, and Morgott's like, how the fuck did you get in? We specifically made a torch so you wouldn't slip past us. What are all my people doing? Why are they so incompetent? And I would not blame him. No, I doubt that, Night Scout, because I don't think there's any reason for Alecto to have been there specific. I guess you could make the argument that Alecto maybe went to Kari Manor or something and then got... No, because then the question is, why wouldn't all the assassins do that? Like, why are they all... Yeah, I don't think... Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, that makes absolutely zero sense. Everything goes wrong. Alecto, or whatever her names is, her daughter, Tish was it or something, dies. And then she's just like, okay, well, my daughter's dead. I guess I'm just going to go back and maybe demand extra payment. right? Like, why wouldn't the others do that? Like, again, that doesn't make sense to me. I think it definitely makes more sense that, like, you know, there had to have been a pullout plan. You don't just like make this entire plot on the assassination without at least some assurance that, don't worry, we're gonna make sure that we can get you out of there afterwards safely. But then clearly that didn't happen. Instead, them with their perfect invisibility stuff ends up getting discovered. At least one of them gets killed, and they all basically scatter to the winds. Right? There is no, oh, we all are supposed to meet up here or something. Yeah, I don't buy that. The more I think about it, the less sense it makes. Yeah, it makes more sense to me that, because Ranni disappears after the shattering. And the implication would be that she disappeared because she went over here to chill out at the cathedral. And later there's the stuff with the dragons and things like that. During the Liurnian Civil War, which would be post Tarnished showing up and, you know, being around for a good while. So, yeah, I think it's just a matter of, like everyone else, Ranni disappears after the shattering. Before then, she was under good security. Alecto has been essentially tracking her down since she disappeared, ends up tracking her to Moonlight Altar, tries to confront her, ends up getting captured. I think that's probably the more likely scenario. Ranni turned off the cold fog machine that night. Just imagine, like, you know, like, it's like, ah, yes, it was a nice and chilly night. No one would be able to see us. And then, like, Ranni just, like, switches it off. Suddenly the moon is exposed and, like, light, I don't know, somehow that lights them up or something. Because it was actually, the invisibility comes from special moon magic or some shit. Like, the power of the dark moon. Something silly like that. And now... yeah, nothing else we really get here. I do find it curious how we get you know, the second Liurnian War, Ash of War specifically here. Like, obviously I know Statue of Radagon, of course, right? Like, yeah, I just kind of find it funny because they have like the statue commemorating him becoming Elden Lord, and they're giving you the item you know, like really highlights, you know, commemorating him becoming the hero in the war. Just kind of funny how they decided this is where they wanted to do it, right? Like, not say somewhere in Liurnia or something. Really? There we go. I was like, why don't that work? Bridge, why? Oh, okay. I love how it's the pink flowers over there, right? To give you the idea that they climbed up from the sewers, right? But if I recall correctly, when we go to the Ashen one at the end, is it, it's not the pink species still, right? Like now it's the, they've been turned by the Erd Tree or whatever, right? One of them at least grew. Neat. I wish this was intersected a bit more, because I don't think the map even intersects this far south. Like, I think the map is mostly, correct me if I'm wrong, concentrated in like this area. It's a bit of a shame, if so. Yeah, so then we have the assassins. They're scattering around, right? Ranni gets to act like she was, right? Godwyn's, of course, dead. He gets the special burial. Right? Yep. Does his thing. Miquella is trying to figure out what to do about those who live in death who are beginning to emerge thanks to all the death root. We also know that the death root I guess much like the Erd Tree, does not require a physical connection along the route lines because it's able to spread even in the realm of Shadow and to Farm Azula, who are obviously been disconnected. I want to check Ancient Dragon War, see if I could fit. I don't think I can. See, this is the problem with Those Who Live in Death and Deathroot, is that they're really good references for the timeline, but it's really awkward if I try to go into any degree of in-depth detail when obviously Godwyn and Deathroot and stuff don't exist formally yet in the timelines that we're talking about. Like the Erd Tree roots might or something. So maybe I can fit it in. I don't know. Godwyn is a Godwyn's just an interesting topic in general, because he's more like a he's used more as a plot device than a character for all the death stuff. And it becomes one of those things where I kind of want to treat him as that and just be kind of like, oh, yeah, you know, all this stuff, you know, Godwyn, when he gets killed and becomes Deathroot and merges the right, like, I kind of just want to, like, at some point, like, just do, like, a small, like, blurb about that and, like, kind of move on. But, like, nah, it really should be its own giant topic because there's so much going on with not just Godwyn, but Those Who Live in Death and everything in that, you know, area of the timeline between the... Well, obviously it extends even past the Shattering, but, like, you know, between, you know, Marika shattering the Elden Ring and the actual Shattering War. Godwyn had to have already befriended Fortisax by the time of Mesmer's assault on Anira Lim, which can make dating things tricky. Why would you say that, Night Scout? I would highly disagree. If anything, Mesmer's assault and stuff has to come before that, because... Oh, lol. I'm like, why are we not going down? That's why. Hello, Celia number 3. Apparently, all you Salians look the same. Aye. Can we have a Celia with, like, blue roofs for once? Oh. Dragon Bolt Grease and Anira Lim. Isn't the Dragon Bolt Grease connected also, though, to the farm, not the Farm Azula people as well? So, like, they could make it and they could be in contact, like, in terms of diplomatic initiatives with the Hornsent, considering they're warring on their part of the continent. There we go. 12-hour shift today, so guess who's off tomorrow? Congrats, Nardi. No, only Greyslop Celia. No! Not Greyslop Celia. With the red roof. I'll be honest, you know, DS2 had, I think, they had the right idea of creating like this network and labyrinth of tunnels, and we kind of get that with the underground stuff here. I'd really love if we get a game that's more extensive with that. And it's just as like, here's your city and here's the entire Undercity. You know, kind of like what we get in Morrowind. Morrowind's, though, is kind of boring by comparison. I think From Software could definitely make a more interesting area to traverse from what we see that they've done in the past between, you know, the depths and the shunning grounds here and stuff. Good job. Night Scout, I understand the description. I'm just saying, I think if we also, those who would see it in context, that would at least give the implication it may not have always been exclusive to Godwyn's Knights. Especially considering, you know, the entire premise of the lightning stuff in general was that it did not originally belong exclusively to the Erd Tree people. Morwinds was kind of boring, to be honest. This guy doesn't get lost in Vivek City. Listen, I'm just saying that at some point, Morrowind sewers just get repetitive. It's just a fact. I'm just saying, like, you compare to the Shunning Grounds, you know, you get that nice dose of frustration as you realize you're in a labyrinth and you've been running in circles 3 times. That's the kind of repetition I enjoy. Now, yeah, nothing really here that I want to look at. Yeah, I looked at that, covered that, talked about Heretical Rise last time, so I feel confident on that. After I use my map. I don't know what you're accusing me of, Nardi. Let's see. Seethe water. I'm still not sure if I would say that, you know, the serpent's name is Eglay. Again, don't think it's like a crazy position to take. Just not sure. Especially when we have, like, you know, like we were talking before about the Church of Erith and stuff like that, right? Like this stuff they make very clear, you know. The name of sorcerers and stuff who probably own these places, right? The Rises. So I'm not gonna say it's crazy with that's like, oh yeah, this is a temple dedicated to the snake god named Eglay, right? But it could just also be just like, you know, a name that they gave it for the area, and it's obvious, and it has an obvious reference. That's not like actually about, you know, it's not actually naming the snake. I don't know. I'd be interested to see if we ever get a follow-up where the snake is named one way or the other. Or at the very least, there's some allusion to kind of reinforce whatever the name would be. There we go. Correct me if I'm wrong. Does this use the same architectural style as what we see elsewhere? I guess that's kind of unfair to say, because like the town is, at least this part of the town is definitely kind of, you know, poorish. I guess they could be the same architectural style, yeah. Because you have the spires and things here, right? Kind of reminds me of like what the stuff we see in Liurnia, right? Yeah, I don't think it's that different. Well, the only thing that might help set a date apart is the use of this. Which again, could always be just because they want to use a fancy lever and they didn't have any other option. As I said before, could be alluding though to like being made by the Age of Plenty under the Glowmite Queen. Also, it's funny, the pregnant ladies. The pregnant ladies are there on the lever. You guys see that? I know we see that we like to make a fun of the copy-pasted assets from Dark Souls 3. But I do kind of find it funny. Because as far as I know, this lever is an Elden Ring asset. So clearly, at the very least, they thought the design element was relevant enough to include here, you know? You're sick and suffering? Sorry to hear, Xavier. Let's see. There we go. I'm pretty sure I have other shots of this, but I always like getting shot of this one because it's like, this is the part where I'm like, I'm curious. Granted, I think we also have... Yeah, we also use this tree type one we see here. This also is used in, pretty sure this is also the exact one they use in, what's his face? Oh, we were just talking about him earlier. Not Medea. How? Medea, why have you done this to me, Medea? Oh, right, I don't have, what's his face is, Midra, there it is, Midra's Manse. Like, it's an M, it's at the tip of my tongue. Ah. Oh yeah, there's Erd Tree stuff here, so. Alright, forgive me, chat, I'm gonna cheat. Alright, there we go. I don't know, is it just me? Is it kind of weird to have this stuff flowing in here? Gonna have you there. Whatever, I guess. It's fine. There we go. Perfect. You know, let's get a slight Dutch angle. There we go. All right. That's enough from me. Because then we have the Glowmite Queen stuff here, right? So I imagine the idea would be that Melina... Mezmer has Abyssal Flames. Melina has Golden Flames. Maybe Melina was having like a Mikola role kind of thing and was trying to help Mezmer with his stuff. Ends up in contact with the Fire Monks, trying to learn and understand the whole fire thing, which helps, you know, ultimately gives her a way to help sway those to her cause when she does the whole Godskin thing later on. She can bring some of them back, as it were. And the matter of just, you know, taking from Marika's possession the Rune of Death, which I'm sure she had laying around somewhere, right? Just a matter of how secure was it, how much time, you know, how easy would it have been for anyone really to be able to get their hands on that, right? Actually, I should say probably the first idea would be like if Mezmer is potentially at least one point or another having studied or received some of his white snake or something from potentially offspring of the snake god here, then that would give Melina a chance to be in contact and for the snake to essentially quote-unquote seduce her into rebellion against her mother. And then, like we said, there's also the thing with the Fire Monks, which again may be related to Mezmer, maybe just her take advantage of her authority as a princess to go into the Forbidden Lands and be able to make contact there. Maybe needed their expertise. I don't know. Yeah, I can't really think of what the Fire Monks would be. I guess you could argue maybe helping teach her on how to use a Minute Master Flame, which she would later use for her Godskins. I guess that could always be the answer. Anyway, but again, brings some of them to her cause, then takes the Rune of Death, goes with to the snake here, right? And whether or not this temple is built under her or if it already existed since well before any Erd Tree folks showed up. I guess you could make that case, consider the statues and everything. I could see that, yeah. Starts doing the whole swaddling cloth thing. I guess the problem would be that she first has to. I guess she could do like a pull a Ronnie and do some like covert assassins, you know, getting some of them when they're out or about, you know. Kind of works slowly but surely. get some god skins, start producing the god skins. The only problem then would be, you know, under what conditions is she working? So that way this goes unnoticed long enough for her to have an army of nobles, right? And then later just plain apostles. So we have to imagine that the apostles and stuff that we meet are just like a fraction of the ones that she originally had. That's a lot of dead quote unquote gods to skin. There's the Godskin Spirit in the Spirit Calling Snail Cave, where they drop the Swaddling Cloth and Black Flame Ritual spell. Oh, you know, I didn't even think about that. I always just assumed it would the ritual and stuff would have happened in Gelmir, but yeah. Granted, they could have brought it from Gelmir. But at the very even if the ritual happened in Gelmir, I guess you could make the argument that the reason they provide them there is because the fire monks were involved, and maybe even those guys were coming back there specifically to hide because they were hoping the fire monks would maybe give them sanctuary or help them out or whatever, or they would find some sympathizers potentially, or maybe even get more of them to switch up and continue the queen's work. Yeah, those all would work. Yeah. So then when they escape, yeah, because they escape, right? Because so what happens? So what do we know about all the Godskins? Obviously, we know Godric somehow gets his hand on some stuff from them. We don't know if that's like they were in the area or whatever, right? Like, I have no idea, because I don't think there's any indication of where Godric exactly ended up picking up the Godskin stuff. For all we know, it's one of the stuff he looted from the capital that he happened to bring with him. Though he hasn't really used it yet, so I don't know if that would necessarily... Yeah, and the way he... Okay, either way, not important. So... maybe some there. We know some that end up hiding out at the bottom of the Caelid Tower. Over here. Again, I don't know if this is just like random. They decide to hide in some really random spot, or if there was something about this area, this region, that was interesting to them. We know one recently has ended up becoming kind of like some sort of like, you know, like saintly figure to the Dominulans for their festival. We have two that end up trying to chase after Malekith. So head to Farum Azula, the Godskin duo. We have a noble who's trying to collect Ronnie's curse mark, most likely, when we go to the Liurnia Tower. Obviously stole it from her office. He just took it from, he swiped it from the secret room here. That's what happened. I'm trying to think if there's any other Godskins I'm forgetting. Obviously, there's the one at Eglay, so coming back here to, yeah, the noble coming back here to do his noble thing. So those two nobles, two acolytes, obviously we get the occasional, like, Black Flame dude. We know Amon also tried going back, right? Ended up... dead and buried. Where is it? Here, right? Godskin stuff in Stordale seems to be locked behind seems to be hidden behind locked fog doors with the Storim statue. I think it's fair to say that probably swiped that stuff from the capital. Well, okay, so here's what I think when I read that. It's like, okay, if he swiped it from the capital, why isn't it in a more formal location like the Vale? Like, for example, this is something he's had for a really long time. Why not hide it here, like, I don't know, in the Godfrey's throne room where it's closest to you, right? Right? Why would you choose to hide it in the random, you know, food storage area, right? So like when I think of something like that, I'm thinking, okay, well maybe he got it more recently and he didn't think of a better place to put it. So he's like, okay, I'll just keep it there for now because it's, you know, it's a good enough hiding spot. It's random, like no one would think that you'd have anything important there in like a storage area or anything like that, right? Like, You know, it's like, you know, this is random stuff where you got food and stuff. You're not expecting to find a Godskin book on flames and stuff that could be used against Godric, right? That's sort of where I'm thinking, right? Because, like, for example, one of the items we know he swiped from the capital, right? He keeps in his war meeting room. Now, I don't know if it's because, you know, Godric himself wants to play every now and then when he's got to be busy listening to all the war gaming going on here. But at the very least, it seems to give the idea that, like, he has some place for it and where it might be appropriate. Because, I don't know, maybe he wants to throw the veil to disguise or create a facsimile of something he wanted for the purposes of showing everybody. I don't know. Yeah, that's just what makes me question whether or not it's recent or if it's something he's had for a really long time. So I'm not sure if he's had it for so long if he would still be keeping it here, right? Versus if it's more recent, then fine, this is good enough for now. I can always move it later, right? God, this food is rotting. Well, yeah, obviously he doesn't want his own soldiers to know, right? That much is obvious. But again, the point is like, okay, well, yes, he doesn't want his soldiers to know, but when exactly? Again, this is something that he owns. He could have it. Clearly, he got it from somewhere. Let's assume that like only a few soldiers know he killed them off. Like that's something that I wouldn't be surprised Godric would do, right? He kills them off, adds them to his grafting. So that way now he's the only one who knows about this book or something, right? So either he or someone he entrusts to do it before he potentially kills them off is hiding the book somewhere. And in the end, it chooses the food storage. Is that something you do when you come back from the castle and you've basically been around here for years and years on end, right? I don't know. Again, I could go either way on this. I can believe it's something that Marika had on hand and he swiped it from the capital. I can also believe that it's something that he just happened, he or his men may have happened to come across because they encountered, I don't know, some Godskins that were lurking out here in their territory somewhere. I don't think he's trying to stitch Godskins, Nardi, because it's about the incantations. It's about having the spells and stuff. And again, then there's the problem. Again, ultimately, I think the problem is if he has it for so long, I do question his choice not to use it. Because like the idea would be, okay, this is my trump card potentially, right? Like this is something I have. Okay, so you don't use it with Malenia when you had, obviously you were in a situation where you end up begging for her, right? You're on your like hands and knees, like prostrating. I don't know. I definitely feel like it would make more sense then that he didn't have it yet. It only comes later, and now he's thinking, but next time I face the demigods, next time I face Morgott, Radahn, Malenia, etc., I will have this in my back pocket, and this will pull me to victory. I'm willing to believe that a little more. Anyway, it's not that important, so. But yeah, so we have at least the Godskin duo and then 2 acolytes and 2 nobles by themselves, as far as I'm aware. And I think that's it for at least this game on what they give us. In which case, 2 of them are for revenge, though I guess you could also argue it could be gathering power because they can take the Rune of Death back. So kind of like a 2-for-1 deal. One of them is just hiding and trying to preserve the Queen's existing power. One of them seems like he's trying to get something started back up with the rebellious snake. So that would just leave the ones in the spirit cave. So the idea that they maybe have tried to make their way over to the fire monks. They took a break in the cave, end up dying, and then becoming part of the summons for the spirit caller. Maybe it was on the assassin. Well, okay, so the question then would be, well, why does the assassin have it, right? So that just moves the goalpost, right? Now it's like, okay, well, how did Godric get his hands on the Godskin manual, like prayer book, I should say? To now, okay, why does one of the assassins sent after Godric has one, right? Now, did this one then kill a Godskin or something, right? Like, it just sort of it becomes the same question ultimately. In my opinion, Dominula Apostle's working with the Gelmir Noble. Dominula is close enough. Yeah, it's possible. I don't see anything wrong with that assessment. Problem is we don't really have a lot of like firmly on what they're would be doing together either, but like I don't see anything wrong with them like potentially being in league. At the very least, I think the Noble would definitely not. I don't think like the chances of them eventually being in league would be out of the question, because like you said, they're close enough, and if the Noble actually got something started, then at some point it's going to have to get the attention of others, and the Apostle would be nearby, right? I guess the question would be is does becoming like this little like Saint Messiah figure for the Dominulans, is that somehow helping the Gelmir snake and the Noble? Aren't the Godskins themselves assassins? I mean, in a sense, they're killing gods, I guess, to make a political point, for the sake of overthrowing Marika, ultimately, I suppose. Yeah, it could be trying to get. Okay, but the problem is that why would they want just regular skins? Is my question. Like, would the Apostle be just trying to get regular skins for the sake of the Noble? I guess it kind of depends on like how necessary is the god in the god skins, or can it just be any skin? It'll be fine. The god skin was mostly just to make a point. It was more so about making a political statement. Yeah, there's always there's also always the Raven mount thing. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like that might end up being more thematic than like relevant here. Because obviously, like unlike say what we were talking about earlier with the the Black Knife Assassin, it's at least in a very specific area and cave that could justify the presence there. Whereas if the Gloamite Queen was working with the snake, then it makes more sense that the reason the Noble's there for the snake, and maybe the Apostle could be there for in league with the Noble and thereby the snake. Yeah, again, my question would just be on like, you know, like I could definitely see the idea of the Apostle creating a skin harvesting operation with the Dominulans. My question would just be, again, like, is that actually a viable like strategy, like, or is that nonsense for one reason or another, right? Because again, I just don't know enough about the whole skin shaving grafting thing to know if it would serve any purpose, right? Beyond another symbolic purpose, right? It could always just be that, where it's like, okay, we're moving on. All right, we don't got a lot of gods to worry about now, but we still got people who are loyal to them. Like, it could just be as simple as that. Yeah, I don't know. I have to think about that one more. I don't really think it would be enough to satisfy just to say that the Apostle needed a place to hide out, and Dominula seemed like an ideal place because they're all like, you know, worshiping him. So I think that definitely works. Anyway, looking at the assassins, they're definitely scattered and stuff. So I think the idea that they may have been coming to the Fire Monks with some of the stuff the Gloamite Queen used, because whether or not the Gloamite Queen did the whole Godskin stuff on Gelmir or not, and I think it still would probably be at least a good chance that it was just on Gelmir. The actual techniques and stuff may have been learned with the help of the fire monks, and therefore they might be going to the fire monks asking if any would be willing to help them continue their queen's work, or at the very least maybe show them how they could do it, potentially. Yeah, it could just be making a cult. Like, it could purely be the apostle needed a place to stay. He stumbles upon the village. They're clearly revering him, and he's like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna, you know, do this whole cult thing. This seems fine. I'll be a cult leader. I'll be a simple man. Like, it could literally be just as simple as this is a good enough place for me to stay because I'm being worshipped here. I can get used to this. Yeah, again, the thing with Caelid is that... The thing with Caelid is I don't know if there's anything that could connect either Melina and the Glowmite Queen to here, or could connect Death to this area specifically. Because again, it looks like they're just hiding, trying to be on the down low with the Queen's sword. So it could be as simple as that. But again, I don't know if there could be some alternate or secondary objective. Or even just like a longer term objective where it's like, okay, we're hiding out now, but eventually when everything calms down, we're going to do something with this place. I don't know. Nothing really stands out to me. Outside of maybe the assassins, right? Maybe the idea is we could work with Celia in the future and we can try to get some assassinating going. But that would be it. I don't know if that's like a strong enough thing. I guess the idea would be if you could recruit the assassins, that would be good enough. I guess it also depends on how much the apostles know, because like if they're able to gather intelligence or stuff, especially if you have like some of the fire monks, you know, able to kind of like move around as like, you know, normal people, quote unquote, right? They're not big spooky snake skin things. Maybe you could have it where they have enough information to learn or figure out that the assassins for the Black Knife plot came from there, maybe? I don't know, that might be a bit of a stretch. They could have provided Ronnie the info about doing that. Could the Godskins be involved? I mean, again, this is one of those things where it's like, yeah, sure. But is that needed to explain anything on, like, what Ronnie has? Because, like, is it reasonable for Ronnie, as a Carian princess, a witch, and an Erdtree princess, to have enough information about the Rune of Death and stuff like that without needing specific outside help? Maybe? I guess it kind of depends on... Well, actually, they have to at least know enough about Malekith specifically, even if the larger history is kept unknown, because Malekith is known as the death of the demigods. So at the very least, there is some understanding amongst the royalty about what happens if you misbehave and what Malekith can do to you. So I think definitely there's enough info there that Ronnie could at least begin to concoct her plot. I guess the question then becomes, considering if the events happen in one night, would she need more help to be able to develop the ritual to infuse the power of the rune in there? Like, would that be something that'd be so complicated she would either A, need more time, at which point the rune would have to have been stolen well before that night, or that she would need a special outside information so that way she could have it all done and figured out on that same night. She doesn't need to go through trial and error. And then you also have to consider on top of that, okay, so let's assume that, you know, Ronnie's able to do all that by herself and all that jazz, right? Like, she's able to recruit the assassins. She knows all the stuff about Malekith and all that. Then there would come the question of then, Would she be willing just to steal the rune without having harmed Malekith? Because I think that's another important factor to consider, is that Malekith ends up getting out of that just fine. So, and we know, again, at the time that he hadn't sealed his piece inside of himself through that amulet thing. Right? So at that stage, Malekith still had his sword about. But he should have always had his sword with him, at least in theory. So somehow either they were able to deprive him of his sword, but they weren't able to kill him. He was able to fight them off, but not before they could steal the piece of the rune and run off. Or they somehow was able to, without him noticing, swipe it from his sword, potentially when he was at some point separated from it. Like he would have put it down for something or other. It depends on how difficult it is to operate runes, Night Scout, because, like, the point is that, like, Ranni studied, like, magic based on reason and things like that. So she just might understand enough principles about, and, like, you know, Karia's entire thing is, like, you know, forging swords and weapons and infusing magic and stuff. Like, the Academy's entire thing is doing skills and things like that. So, again, I just don't know, like, it could be that her ability to learn the specialized knowledge to do what she does with the blades is something that only requires the experience that would be afforded to someone who's both either or both a Karian and or Erdtree princess. Right, like the real question is like, okay, like would Ranni be willing to leave Malekith alive? If yes, then I don't know if it makes sense for her to be working with the assassins, because why not just kill him, right? And if no, the idea was always to kill him, then what went wrong? So that way he's still alive, but the plot itself was still went off without a hitch, right? Like I said, the best argument I can think of is maybe they overwhelmed him initially, were able to get their hands on the sword, take a piece, and some of them at least were able to run off. And then Malekith was able to then, like, you know, get back his footing, overpower them all, and they all just kind of ran away. Again, they are, at the very least, they have the benefit of being mysterious assassin stuff. And with the invisibility cloak thing added on, they have even more chances to just kind of do their thing. Right? Without being recognized. I don't know. It's definitely something where if the actual scene gets depicted, like let's say the Elden Ring film coming out is going to cover the Night of the Black Knives or something, I would definitely be curious on how exactly it was supposed to have played out. Because there are definitely some interesting questions the more I'm thinking about it now. What is the most likely scenario for how all this played out the way it did? Yeah, again, the question is also if it was a single night. Because if it's a single night, then at the very least, either what she's doing is not that complicated. Granted, we should acknowledge Roggiero was able to reverse engineer what she was doing and stuff, right? So at the very least, it's something that sorcerers can definitely be familiar with. You don't need specialized knowledge to be able to figure out what was done to the knives. And again, Roggiero is able to get enough details that he can find Ranni's name being imprinted in there. So yeah, I don't know if I would say that it needs the specialized knowledge. Ranni could have killed him since the shadows don't really die. Is that true? Like, again, I don't know, because if you kill Blythe, doesn't that, like, I guess you could say that, like, you know, it's gonna be hard to continue the quest if you've killed Blythe. But like, is there actually anything we have on like shadows not really dying when you kill them? Because we kill Malekith seemingly pretty easily. Oh. All right. Woo! Thought I was gonna miss. Here it comes. I'll be honest, I can't believe I'm able to climb back up here. That's the most shocking thing to me. All right. I think it's enough kind of thinking on this game. Lightning Great Bolt. Do I not have ammunition here? Yes. Good old gravel. Ah, look. My favorites. We got all the great reliefs all in one place. Got whatever this is. Whatever the hell this is. Whatever the hell these two are. These bloodborne ass looking things. Anyway. You're strong of arm, but ask yourself what harm can be done to a shadow. That could be just bravado, but again, I cannot claim to have looked too deeply at Blythe's lines, so maybe. I don't remember if I took shots of this guy or not. I think I have. Anyway, so looking at good old Tumeru, I will say I'm actually impressed by how expansive the blood section is going. I might have to like rewrite things to make it its own separate little thing. And I'm trying to see how far I can go with the hunting section. Like, I think I have some of the beast stuff in the blood section. I think I'm going to move that out and put it in the hunting section because I just think it's going to be more relevant there, and the hunting section is going to be a little meager otherwise. Plus, I'm going to have to... It'll help me with trying to segue in the wildlife stuff if I also include the stuff about some of the beasts there. But I think one of the cool things that I've seen is the... How do I put it? It's been seeing like just how much like it actually kind of just works when you're talking about like stuff like the weapons and the runes and things. Like it's really starting to come together as I'm like, you know, just kind of like, you know, putting it out there. And I'm really happy with that because it's actually making really good progress a bit faster. Now, again, like I said, I can't guarantee I'm going to have it done by the end of the year. There's still like so many other things to worry about, you know, that this time of year. So I may end up having to like, you know, put it on the back burner at some point and not like work on it for a few days or more. We'll have to just see. But yeah, I'm enjoying it a lot. Here's do a dialogue attacking you again if you previously killed it. Oh, good to know. Okay, cool. Anyway, so neat. So yeah, maybe Malekith was actually killed and like he didn't actually die. Though again, that would make me question more what happens with his sword then if he gets killed. Does the sword disappear with him? Does he even disappear? Is he just a body on the ground and they just took a piece of it before running away? I have many questions. Also, is it because like Marika's dead or something, quote unquote, that we can kill him now and there doesn't seem to be any consequences? Or is it just because Marika's under punishment and he failed, so he's no longer got like, I don't know, divine protection of immortality? Interesting questions to ask. Anyway, that's you know, that's for me to wonder in the future. But yeah, so far the stuff on Tumeru is looking good. Again, I'm happy to say that it's not going to be like super like complicated. It's going to like, you know, drain me or anything to cover. I'm enjoying it a lot. It's just a question of, you know, will I have the time this year with everything else going on to keep this pace? But oh well, that's for me to wonder. Thank you so much, guys. Be safe. Bye-bye.